Good news, you're Pexin with the Legends, and we are your hosts from the gamer editing team. My name is Eric, and I'm not shaving until they fix Pathfinder.
You're gonna be waiting a while then. I'm Whitney. I go by Lumbago, and I've been loving living La Vida Loba. Playing a lot of
Not,
games with her, having so much fun.
yeah, and I'm Andrew, and on that note, I'm not going to be getting a haircut until they change Pathfinder, so we're going to make a lot of commitments here.
Mostly because you just can't get a haircut.
That's really it. I don't even care about Pathfinder that much.
Yeah.
I play Wraith.
Okay, well, it is week 3 now of season 5, and the big change this week is the return of World's Edge map. We also have our second hunt level PvE mission. We have some ALGS news on the pro scene front, and just a couple little fun Reddit things to talk about in there. So let's jump right in. Let's start with World's Edge. We're all happy to see the return of World's Edge, right?
Gotta love it.
I think that the Loba is a very interesting addition to World's Edge. So it was on a rotation last night when I played, and it was only for like a half an hour, so I didn't get to get too many games in with her. But because like the sort of terrain is different, it's very like interesting to use her tactical to move around the map in different ways, because there are more like tall buildings and you can get in the second floor. And not that you can't do that in Kings Canyon, but I just feel like there's a lot of possibilities that have yet to be explored in World's Edge. And then, I'm sure you've already seen about the cool thing that happens if you try to loot as Loba.
Yeah, so the thing with the vault was confirmed when Loba's kit was revealed. I can't remember which one of the developers, or I think it was a Reddit response that it was confirmed that she could loot the vault, but nobody knew actually what would happen. I think you did a story about it, right, Whitney?
I did indeed. But it was funny because last night I was playing and I was just waiting for my ult to come up, and I could tell that my teammates were just waiting on me. And then I just said like, oh, there's like 10%. And then there were some shots, but I dropped my ult anyway when it came, and I didn't realize what was going to happen. So I just see this like gold helmet. I was like, oh, I should grab that. And then I like grabbed it, and it gave me like a prompt that was like, are you sure you want to steal this from the vault? I was like, duh. So I went and did it. All of a sudden there's sirens and there's teams moving toward us, and it's just pandemonium and it's chaos. But it is really cool because I do believe that it's a matter of balance, really, because how overpowered would it be for you to just be a Loba? I mean, everybody would be Loba if that were the case, right? If you could just go to the vault and loot everything in one shot for you and all your teammates.
Yeah. So just to clarify, when you loot the vaults that are in World's Edge as Loba using her ult, it sounds an alarm that everybody can hear at a distance. Do you have any idea how far you can hear that alarm? How far across the map?
I do not know, but you know how like the gunshots really ring throughout the map, so I assume that the sirens really ring
It's
throughout the
bringing
map
everybody
as
in.
well.
Yeah.
The tornado siren of World's Edge.
Yeah.
And I just want to say too, because I didn't make this clear, like once you steal the item, like the entire black market is what it's called, it just disappears or like crumbles, so your teammates don't get anything. That's what I really felt like a jerk, because there was a Pathfinder waiting around. I was just playing randoms. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. I just accidentally broke this.
Yeah, that's a great detail. I didn't realize that. So when you take something from the vault, it ends her ult.
Yeah.
That's
Hope
so funny.
the gold helmet was worth it, Whitney.
Yeah, so you can only take one piece out of there.
I think I got like 1,000 damage in that game and no kills because like my teammates just kept getting downed around me. It's just one of those kind of games where you're just trying to help. I mean, I had a skull piercer. I was like, everything was good. A skull piercer on a longbow, the right scope. I had high grounds, but then you're just trying to cover for those teammates, right?
That's great. Yeah, it's one of those beautiful things where like environmental storytelling meets a game mechanic, and it just makes sense that it would do that in the context of the world and in the game. So yeah, I love that. I totally didn't expect that it would do that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We also have a new retail package for Apex, the Pathfinder edition. Did you guys get a chance to see all the cosmetics that are in that one?
Yeah, I checked it out a little bit.
What do you think?
The aesthetic was awesome. I think they made it. You know what it reminded me of. The trailer that they did was probably the most stylized trailer I think I've ever seen out of Apex Legends. It was purposefully covered in static as if it was like from an old TV. It reminded me of these like old G.I. Joe broadcasts. There's a
Yeah.
specific wave of memes that came from those old G.I. Joe cartoons. They're
Pork
very
chop
dated.
sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. Pork chuck sandwiches. I won't quote those; they're pretty explicit. Some of them at least. but yeah, pretty funny to see Pathfinder with like a red bandana. It's kind of like Rambo-esque camouflage.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of references packed into one little Pathfinder edition. I thought it was great. It's a good theme.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think probably the standout aside from the Pathfinder's actual skin would be that Havoc skin.
Yeah.
I think that Havoc skin is awesome. So I think there's like 6 things in there. Of course, you get a season path's worth of coins. You get like 1,000 X coins with it. And it's meant to sit in a box at a store somewhere. So we've had a few of those in the past. We had, I believe, a Wraith one and a Caustic one before, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was Bloodhound.
Yeah, Bloodhound definitely has one, and Loba has one. That's how I was surprised that the Pathfinder one came out, because there's a Loba edition. Her eyes are glowing. It's really cool.
So that's I think that's a digital only bundle.
So it's not necessarily a Loba edition. It's just a skin of hers.
Yeah, I think that's just a bundle, the one that came out last week, and then this one is, they call it Pathfinder Edition because it's meant to sell product. So that's $20, and you get, it covers a season. And what's a season now? It's $10, right?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. I think a season's like 1,000 Apex coins. So you get you get a trinket and the weapon skin and the Pathfinder skin. It's a cool new bundle that they're doing. Yeah.
Well, and I just want to say I love the juxtaposition as well, because like Pathfinder is the nice robot, and then to just see him in this total like Rambo skin, is just like, oh, okay, you can be that guy too.
Yeah. I'm sure he looks really funny with his heirloom too, right?
Yeah, right.
Of course, a very clever Redditor pointed out that the trailer for the Pathfinder edition is in fact shorter than Pathfinder's cooldown on his tactical.
Yeah, it's 30. So the trailer's 30 seconds long, and his cooldown on his grapple's 35 seconds. So everybody, when somebody pointed that out, I think on Reddit maybe was the first, everybody latched onto that. It's in YouTube comments. It's like all anybody's talking about is like some riff on that idea. It's like, oh man, I could watch this whole trailer and I still wouldn't have my grapple. Right. So yeah.
Do you think that somebody at EA is like screaming that they released this like limited edition bundle like right after Pathfinder got nerfed and is not being played as much?
It certainly is bad timing. If I had to guess, I would imagine that these sort of like cosmetic bundles are planned out at least a year ahead of time, whereas balance changes are not. Balance changes don't come much quicker. So. Yeah, it is very funny timing for sure.
Yeah, coincidental for sure.
Yeah,
and that gun charm, by the way, is a Molotov cocktail, so it's one of the cooler charms for sure.
It is a very cool charm. Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. When Andrew and I jumped into stream to play on World's Edge, I'm pretty sure that the lighting on World's Edge has changed this season. Just like it has for Kings Canyon. I think the shadows are longer and the sun is lower. Whitney, did you happen to notice that World's Edge looks a little different?
I did not, but I would say that I played a little while last night, and I really can only remember 2 games in World's Edge, and they were like longer games, but both games we landed in Capital City, which tends to be kind of shadowy anyway, and we didn't really move on from there that much in either game. So I am probably not the best frame of reference. Which is funny because I feel like I played a lot last night, and I read recently that the rotation times are supposed to be like, I don't know if random's the right word, but they're supposed to be varied. And I was like, really? Because I played like 4 hours last night and had 2 games in World's Edge.
Interesting. So it's not a half hour on each map anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So it is random. Okay, I didn't even know that.
There is a timer. You can see how much longer you have on each map, but I guess it's not consistently a half hour for each.
I can actually, yeah.
I don't know that for a fact, but I recall seeing that Jason McCord is the the Respawn person who I remember said something along those lines about when it comes out. And if I got the information wrong, we'll let you know in the sort of
Yeah,
like
we'll do
index of this podcast.
We'll have to start a corrections at the
Yeah.
beginning of each
What I
episode.
can confirm is I've got it pulled up right now, and it's World's Edge is on the rotation. There's 13 minutes left, so there definitely is some sort of system going
Yeah.
on here. I'd be surprised if it was random, but if that's what happened, then I definitely missed the news. And as far as the lighting, I also can't really confirm because we had only played a couple games as well. All I know is that if there's a difference, it's like Eric said, a subtle one, where the sun may have sunk just a little bit. Because I did notice the shadows were long, but I was one of those things where I was questioning myself, like, were they always this long? I'd honestly have to compare. So
well, the
somebody knows.
Kings Canyon change is pretty drastic.
It's drastic.
That one is obvious that they changed. So if they change this one, I might just be talking out of my butt, but I just have this sense that the shadows are a little bit longer. Interesting topic. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this ALGS circuit this summer. Andrew, you had mentioned that some of the pros maybe aren't too psyched about the setup. Tell us about that.
So essentially, there was this big ALGS, the Apex Legends Global Series circuit of tournaments that were all pretty big, and all of them, of course, in person. You'd play online qualifiers, get points, qualify to go to these big LAN events and everything. And since the whole COVID thing, they've been just pulling things back more and more and more and delaying things, moving things online. And unfortunately, the prize pools have also been affected in a pretty big way, to the point where now what I was just seeing from certain, just some people in the scene, they were unhappy with the prize pools of these tournaments. Because what's essentially going to happen is there's 5 tournaments going on. There's 4 what they're calling, I think, super regional tournaments. Yeah, super regional tournaments. There's 4, 1 in June, 1 in July. Actually, sorry, 2 in July and 1 in August. Mm-hmm. So these will affect your chances to qualify for the playoffs in September. And then there's an additional 5th last chance qualifier in late August. So it looks like there's 5 tournaments that will be going on in this, what they're calling the summer circuit here.
And this is a completely different format than last year.
I know that it's following the ALGS rules exactly, but the prize table is very different. So what the professionals are unhappy about, at least some of them I know, is that only the top 3 teams in each of these super regional tournaments will be receiving cash prizes.
Oh, wow. That's rough.
So for the US, or sorry, the Americas, because it's super regional. So for one of these, say if I was to play, I'd be in the Americas one, which combines North America, South America teams. And first place gets 6,000, second place gets 3,000, third place gets 1,500. So a lot of these players are like, no organizations are going to be interested in such a small little cash grab. It's just not enough to really salary players and invest. So they're really worried that this is another reason to let the scene sort of trickle out rather than build up into something sustainable.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's hard to tell right now how much things are affected by the global health crisis and how much things are affected by interest in the game. But at a certain point, as this goes on, it doesn't really matter. It's like, this is the reality of where the game is at, right? So yeah, it sucks to see those prize pools so low, because it means that, like you said, the teams can't justify investing in salarying these teams and spending the time it's going to take to get ready for them.
Well, and also a lot of the pros are the content creators for the game. So if you lose them to other games, then like you're also losing all that marketing. So in a sense, it's just a lot of that. I have so many issues with this. I mean, just across the board, I feel like Fortnite, I don't know what they pay, but I feel like you could rank pretty low in their charts and still get $200 or something like that. I mean, obviously not any place that I could ever rank, but relatively, right? And then also just the fact that, like, I mean, how are you really going to hold your own here? Oh, two thoughts, but like when games like, StarCraft isn't like doling out like $30 million at its biggest tournaments. And look, I get that the global health crisis is happening, but I also understand that people are spending more time gaming right now. They're spending more time streaming and watching streamers, you know? So, if anything, this should be the opportunity where you start to put your hands in there and say, like, okay, like, you know, maybe we can't give you those Fortnite level World Cup $1 million prizes right now, but we can do something for you. I mean, you know, it's a lot better than like coming in just being like, I'm going to gift a sub on your channel or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces at the end of the day. So I'm not necessarily qualified to make any big statements on it. I know that there's some frustration and there's got to be things on other sides because honestly, Respawn does a good job keeping in touch with this community, all things considered, and they usually adjust if there's big enough pushback on things. But who knows what goes on behind the scenes? I know another big complaint that's related to this as well is the scrim meta. So private lobbies are run by a third party, GLL. They run the scrimmages, and they've been known to butt heads with the professionals many times. They'll ban professionals from scrims for what seems to be absurd reasons and even petty reasons. So there's just a lot of stuff going on in the professional scene right now, but we can probably cover that at a different time.
Sure.
But yeah, that's just some of the stuff that's been stirring up lately, especially with this announcement that came today.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's get into this week's hunt. Andrew and I ran it together on stream. Whitney, you got a chance to run it yourself as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we sort of talk about the details, let's compare just to last week. Are you guys feeling good about it? Has your opinion changed, Whitney?
I mean, this one was what, like a little bit longer. You know, I think like once upon a time, I don't know if I ever wrote this article or just thought about it, but I was like, oh, it'd be nice to have a PvE mode where I could just practice aiming at things. And I liked that the character that I chose for this mission had a sniper rifle because it was just target practice. But, you know, like if that's it, I mean, that plus the lore piece, I guess, is the reason why we're doing this because, you know, they're not particularly difficult. And maybe it is just to keep people engaged. You know, who maybe are weaker at the actual game itself, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's definitely an opportunity for people that are invested in the game to get a win, get a guaranteed win. You know, yeah. Andrew, did you like this one more than last week?
I would say yes. Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was better for sure, and it was more engaging. There were more sort of hunt specific things. Sort of, I won't get into spoilers yet, but something happens, right? We can talk about this.
Yeah.
If we're planning on revealing that, I'm giving you time right now if you're listening and haven't played it yet. Where something happens to a character, and there's also something that has to do with interactivity with panels. And there's a pretty cool version of a flyer that's carrying a gold box that we saw. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a stronger mission, I'd say, overall when it comes to developing the story and just being a little bit more engaging, feeling a little more unique. But the length was still really, really short.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't the worst that I'd imagined would happen for the second hunt, but it's, you know, still got, I think, room to impress.
Yeah, I totally agree. It gives the player a lot more to do. I think briefly, here's your spoiler alert, where I'm just going to run through the events of the activity. So your team starts at the top of the tower. You all start with a triple take, and you have to snipe 4 of the prowlers on the ground. If you look off towards the building where the next zone is, what?
Are you talking about Hydro Dam?
Yeah. If you look off towards Hydro Dam, you can see triple take fire coming out of the building, which I actually didn't notice that until the second time I played it. And you can see the fences up.
Mm-hmm. The
right?
Watson fences, yeah.
Yeah. So once you kill your 4 prowlers, then they will start coming up into the tower. The floor will break open, and you'll fight your way out and towards Watson's fences, where that building is. When you get inside there, you'll find that Watson is actually down, and not just you can't pick her up. She actually dies. She actually like there's a character model that falls and like dies in the sequence. So there's a little dialogue beat there where she says like not everyone can make it, and then she boxes. From that point, you go down into that bunker, and there's 3 panels you have to interact with. After your team presses those 3 panels, you go outside. You do the same thing as last week. You drop the little artifact drill, laser drill.
Yeah.
You fight off a bunch of prowlers, and then you run to the evacuation jet. So there is more storytelling this week. There is more to do because you have a series of objectives, as opposed to last week. It was like go there, then leave.
Right.
So I think like if they continue to complicate these missions every week and add narrative layers to it, I will be impressed. But as far as I can't wait for the next one, like I still don't feel it. Still don't feel like neither from a storytelling point of view or from a gameplay point of view am I like particularly excited to see the next. However, there are some details in the lore that you get after the fact that I am intrigued by. Whitney, did you get a chance to read?
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about the story?
Yeah, well, so the biggest thing to me, because I've already mentioned this, that like my hypothesis that maybe Caustic is not as bad as we've sort of made him out to be. And we sort of get this clue in one of the earlier cutscenes of this mission that, Caustic, I think Loba points out that he's been accused of doing things. And, we sort of are introduced to the Apex narrative like he is this bad guy, that he's done all this horrible stuff, right? But this is sort of calling that into question. So what we see here is that when we discover that like Watson's down, and Loba just kind of dismisses it. Oh, she'll be fine, right? And Caustic gets angry, and we've seen this actually in the lore pieces as well, where he's sort of talked about playing like a fatherly figure. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but we can put together the fact that Nox, pre-Caustic, was a scientist, and that Watson's father was a renowned scientist who worked on, the arena. And I believe that there's some connection there. Maybe they worked together or something. I think there's another lore piece that sort of insinuates that connection. But I sort of see here that like he's very protective of her, which sort of shows that he has a human side, even if it means throwing Loeb up against the wall and strangling her or whatever it said that he did.
A minor offense.
That was my favorite part. That's what stood out to me too, is that the relationship building between Wraith, Watson, and Caustic, I think is interesting and not something that you necessarily get just from the voice line, the character vibe. Yeah, so I like that element too. Andrew, what did you think about the story? Or I kind of just described the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp. I thought it was awesome that Dr. Caustic has so many layers to him. He's not what he appears. And this kind of plays into, I had written a story about like the best conditional character chatter, and one of the best lines is between essentially Watson and Caustic. Watson has a very emotional one actually when she reses Caustic in game. She can say the line, I couldn't save Papa, but I can save you, Dr. Caustic.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a lot. And also, she'll like res him, or she'll be res by him, and she'll respond with, "See, Dr. Caustic, you're not as bad as they all say," or like, "We scientists need to stick together." They have all these endearing lines that you wouldn't expect. So the conditional chatter, kind of cool too. And yeah, I'm fuzzy here. So yeah, there's some interesting depth to that relationship, and the story from this quest just furthered that. So now I'm really interested.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun moments in the story. So just to recap what happens this week, we pick up at Octane's date with Yoko. Yoko, yeah, I forgot it last week too. And Octane is there to pump information from her about why Loba was meeting with Hammond, right? And he's not subtle about it, of course. He comes right out and asks, but he promises Yoko that he can get her a autograph from Bangalore.
Yeah. And she's actually interested.
And she's really into that, because
that was pretty good comedy.
Bangalore never hangs out after the matches to sign autographs, so she gives up the deets for Bangalore's autographed, and what she tells Octane is that Loba is after the source code, which we know. She doesn't know what the source code is, and none of the characters but Loba do. But we know from Loba's cinematic that the source code is basically the actual Revenant. That's his killable true self, right? And that's what Loba's after. She wants her revenge. So when in Loba's intro cinematic, when Loba infiltrated the labs underneath Skulltown, she was trying to find the source code. The source code was teleported out, and Loba is trying to find out where it is. And that's what her meeting with Hammond was about. That's what Yoko tells Octane. And Yoko explains that Hammond knows where the source code is and will give it to Loba, but Hammond wants this artifact. And that's why the team is helping Loba to dig up these artifacts. And what we learn is that even Loba doesn't know what this is and what it will do. But Hammond wants it, and Hammond's willing to trade it for the source code. So Yoko reveals that to Octane. Octane doesn't get it, but thankfully we were there to parse that information.
And Wraith.
Meanwhile, Mirage and the rest of the team are on their mission to retrieve this next piece of the artifact. When Watson is downed, she does not get killed, obviously, but she is downed, and Mirage radio comms to Wraith. Wraith retrieves Octane from the date through magical portals, and the team comes together to talk about the mission and to talk about Watson getting hurt, because this is becoming real. There are casualties. There's real danger, and do we really want to help Lobo on this mission that we don't understand why we're even doing it? And in that moment, amidst all that conflict, Revenant appears, and he had been listening in, and now he knows what they're doing, and he knows about the Halloween Town world where he is whatever
Worshipped
he is, worshipped as a god, as he puts it. So those are sort of the narrative beats, and I think this is probably what I would consider like a Act 1 conclusion for the story. And I thought it was actually like pretty exciting. When Revenant showed up, I was like, oh damn!
Yeah, like when Wraith was like, it was my voice. I was like, oh snap, what's about to happen?
Yeah, so I especially liked the Revenant moment, and just Wraith showing solidarity with the team and the alliances within that team, and learning more about how the characters feel about each other, I think, is one of the best parts about these lore dumps that we're getting.
I also think we have to remember in all this, like, Hammond is not really a good company, right? They're like, Hammond gave us our Planet Harvester with all our nice advertising that this is going to be great, and it absolutely destroyed World's Edge, right?
Yeah.
It gave us our Rest in Peace Forge, right? He was the biggest ambassador, and he was definitely a total jackass. So, it's very interesting to me, because I'd have to really go back and think about the relationship to sort of see how deep that goes. But she's working for the bad guy in this, and the Legends must kind of understand that, but they also are sort of all in on being part of like the bad guy, because they've all agreed to be part of the games, and Hammond Robotics is very, very supportive of the games as a whole. And one thing that I pulled from this, and I'm not really sure how it fits in, is that, like, the reason I think it's very interesting that these artifacts are all hidden under King's Canyon. That's why we needed to go back to this map, even if we're doing it in the sort of other world. And how much control does Hammond have there? And now it's a whole host of things, right? So,
right. And then we have to now consider, now that Revenant knows, what is his relationship with Hammond and the group, and what part will he play? Because we're going to keep getting these artifacts, right? There's 7 more of these hunt missions for us to do this season. So how do you guys think the mission is going to continue from this point, now that Revenant knows that the entire team is working together? Unbeknownst to most of them, but they're all working together to kill him.
Well, I think that maybe too. I mean, can we? I can't remember if Hammond was the company that also created Revenant, but theoretically, once he figured out he was a simulacrum, he would be angry. He was angry, and presumably he'd be angry with the people who caused that to happen to him, right? And if you look back, I remember reading in the Titanfall lore that some people who come back as simulacrums are totally fine with it, but some people, if I remember correctly, really does affect them deeply. And, Revenant was created to be this murder killing robot, So it's interesting because I do think that there's going to be more conflict because we have to keep the story going. But in the end, maybe they all kind of have the same goal, or maybe it's yes, we want to find these artifacts, but then Revenant wants to sabotage it, and even though we think of him as being the sort of bad guy in this situation, he has his own reasons to want to destroy Hammond, theoretically, right? Is this getting very convoluted? I feel like I'm gonna be like that gif of Charlie Day, the gif or whatever. It's
there is no Karen in HR.
That's a good reference. Yeah, it's to me, if they're gonna go the sort of I don't know, Marvel Universe cookie cutter Avengers route,
sure,
then Revenant's just gonna be well, I'm gonna join you now, and they're gonna be we don't like this, but I guess we have no choice or something. That's how I expect it to go.
I sort of expect the same thing, yeah. But then how do we get there? Why would he? We know that there is our Revenant who is evil, and then there's eviler Revenant, right?
even more evil Revenant.
More evil Revenant in Halloween Town, and maybe our Revenant's got a problem with that guy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, or even just a lust for answers, because it seemed like he didn't really understand himself fully, and he's just been on a quest to, in between killing parents and stuff, he's been on a quest to figure out who am I,
And
are you my mother?
Well, another character that we don't really know a lot about their background is Crypto. We don't really know. Ooh. We have a little bit of insight of their motive. Oh, I like this.
He was not playable in this mission, and nothing's explained about this.
Correct.
Riddle me this. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. The weird, not playable characters, and I thought that Wraith shouldn't have been playable.
Right. Wraith should not have been
made
playable.
No sense to me. It broke my immersion.
Right. When you read the lore afterwards, Wraith is observing Octane's date. She finds out that Watson went down and teleports back to the group. There's no reason Wraith should have been there on the mission. It doesn't make any narrative sense.
I'm losing my mind here. Charlie Day picture again. But yeah, so I really feel like maybe there's a chance they meant to make it so Wraith was unplayable and Crypto was supposed to be playable. I doubt it. I feel like there's some reason we don't know yet, but until then, we'll just assume that they were in another dimension for that mission, and that was just another Wraith.
I just want to confuse everybody more by pointing out that in the Voidwalker video, that when Wraith goes to hack the computer to try to get her information about who she is, she's using source code that has Crypto's emblem on it. So what we're sort of seeing is that they knew each other somehow, right? And this is pre Kings Canyon, because that's when that happened, because that's when Wraith emerged and actually joined the Apex games, right?
Are you saying that Crypto programmed Revenant in JavaScript? Oh my gosh. Maybe it was C#. I don't
know. But it is really interesting to me to figure out how all these stories, because that's a lingering question. That's something that we've spotted, and I have spent, minutes analyzing this.
Seconds upon seconds.
Next week we'll get the cork board up. We'll start pulling string. We'll make sense of all of this.
Weekly, we come in more crazy looking every single time.
I'm working on it.
I do have to point out, though, this is awesome that they're doing this. I don't see a lot of games trying to move stories forward this way. Yeah. They continue to also develop the world sort of outside. I mean, we remember that note that Loba's mother wrote where we sort of discovered her personality. There's just little lore bits that they release sort of in addition to the game on social media and on blog posts and things like that. So it really makes the world feel, it's just different. It's not just like watching your favorite show because you get all these sort of supplementary pieces as well. And I know a lot of people who are really deep in, like, I'd say the Marvel or DC universe will look at the comic books and compare them to the movies and what's canon and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's very interesting that like Apex started off as like set in the Titanfall universe, but is really like its own sort of narrative piece or arc or franchise, as you might put it, right?
Mhm.
And now they have the full capacity to put all these pieces together that are all supposed to be canon, as opposed to like Marvel when the rights they lost to something else and they had to figure out or restart from scratch or whatever, right? So
Yeah. I totally agree. I'm impressed with the ambition. I'm very satisfied that the direction they're taking to retain players and grow the game is narrative focused. I think that's awesome for a battle royale game. It's so bizarre.
And also, didn't they just open a new studio? I think I read in Canada, right?
Yeah,
So they have a dedicated team. Like to me,
right.
Apex is not it's not just this. Like they are planning to expand it to something even bigger. Because if it was just the battle royale, then like why would you theoretically need to expand your team like a whole nother team? Maybe you hire a few more people, right? So there's something going on behind the scenes. I mean, maybe they're testing what PvE might look like if they build a campaign in the long run, which I would love. Also make it more Destiny style, something I would also love. But then you also want to make sure people are still playing the battle royale aspect. So there's a lot to weigh there. But I do think that this is, I mean, everything that Respawn's teased has been sort of a gateway to something bigger ever
Yeah,
since season 1. So it's interesting to see how much bigger it's going to get.
it certainly bodes well for the future of the game. I think that one thing to consider though is that Respawn has not done a live service game before. You
Mm,
know, all of
fair
their
enough.
games come out and then they support them for a while and then they move on. So if they are still interested in doing the next Star Wars game and single player experiences and stuff, then they need a team that can support this game for the long run. So I think that to me is how I kind of made sense of the new studio. Um,
That's
in
fair too. Just shoot down my dreams. It's fine.
I don't think it means like they're taking anything away from Apex or they're not going to continue to grow it. There was something that you said about other games not doing storytelling this way, and I can't believe I finally just now made this connection. But Whitney, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. This entire season arc is so reminiscent of the Invitation of the Nine in Destiny 2.
I
Are you
mean,
familiar with that quest line?
I am not. I don't
Okay.
remember. I'm sorry.
So every week there's a character that shows up in Destiny named Zur, and
I know Zoro.
he sells like exotic stuff that you can't get anywhere else. A few seasons ago, Zur would have a quest, and you would claim that quest, and you would do some, kill this many dudes or whatever, and then you would jump into a narrative encounter, and it would tell a piece of that story. And then
Mhm.
every week he would have a new quest. The quest chain was called the Invitation of the Nine, and you would get the full story by doing one quest a week for 9 weeks, which is exactly what this is. It's the exact same thing. I can't believe it didn't occur to me before, but it's a great, and it was very well received, I think,
Mhm.
in Destiny. So yeah, maybe this is something that more games can, a format that we'll see, sort of pioneered.
I mean, not to get too much off topic here, but the things that they're able to do with games now, they functionally didn't exist even 3 years ago. So we've seen that like Fortnite is able to hold concerts in game that are live, that are broadcasted to millions and millions of people. And it's just really interesting to see what else is possible if you sort of start to take that into account. Like, what are the possibilities? And I'm not saying that I think that Apex Legends should host a Dead Mouse concert or
What
whatever,
would a
but
good Apex concert be? Just the sideline for a second. What would be a cool concert in Apex?
Grimes, probably.
There would have to be trampolines everywhere. There would have to be bounce pads.
Yeah, Octane jump.
Octane
It's just
jump.
Octane as a DJ. And we find out later it was like Marshmallow and he's double crossed Fortnite. I don't know.
he would definitely be I mean, I could see or Mirage. I don't know. Maybe they would be fighting over it because Octane has the good music taste, but Mirage wants to put on like the 70s hits that
We
everybody.
need to make that a feature, like assign a musical genre to each legend. Like what music would I kind of want to write that. Can I write that? Is that against the law?
It's approved. I'm not even have authority to approve, so, but I'm telling
as
you,
long
it's
as
approved.
Wraiths is like screamo music.
Yes. Her genre is just called whispers. Careless whisper.
Caustic could be acid rock.
I see what
psychedelic.
He would know.
Digress.
He definitely strikes me as someone who's like listening to Pink Floyd in his workstation or something.
No,
right?
I think he's listening to like Frozen soundtrack. Let It Go and stuff.
I feel like Mirage only listens to Sublime.
Oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah.
Who listens to K-pop? I don't think it'd be Crypto, despite his background. I think it'd be
Watson.
somebody else. Yeah, Watson, or maybe even Pathfinder. I don't know.
Watson's a weeb, I can tell.
We'll unpack that one next
week on the pod. Watson the weeb. Okay, cool. That's about all I had to talk about. Is there anything that I missed? Anything cool you guys saw on Reddit or anything like that about the game?
I just want to talk about one thing. I saw the tail end of, and I may get the name wrong, but it's Tom Casilio, maybe, is a writer. And he did a streamcast with Chris Edgerly, aka Pathfinder, the voice of Pathfinder in Apex Legends. I only got the tail end, but somebody had asked the question, is there some big piece of lore that people haven't discovered? And it's like a huge thing that they should know, or that people should be looking out for. And he said something very, very intriguing, which was, well, there isn't something that nobody's discovered, but there's something that should be a much bigger deal than it already is. So there's something that, like, what's the Mr. Burns where you're like this. So and so I just thought that was really interesting. I'll be on the lookout for that. I'm sure many other people will. There were like a lot of the lore community were in the chat sort of listening in.
Nice.
But of course I was all caps in the chat just going, what is it? You have to talk.
That's awesome. I think they do such a good job with planting seeds that it's always really satisfying when you find out what's coming.
Yeah.
Although nobody saw Skulltown going. I don't think that was.
Let's take the best part of King's Canyon and sink it.
Or just like, what's the craziest thing that we could do that could potentially piss people off or could be very, very exciting? I know. It's just like the kind of idea that you come up with in like a brainstorming meeting and you just blurt out expecting that nobody's going to agree with it. And everyone's like, yes, let's do that.
It's like that meme format where the guy gets thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
That was exactly it. But yeah, they do a great job respecting the intelligence of their fan base, because they don't make anything obvious. They just put the smallest little things here and there and leave it to us. I much prefer that to any else.
And it kind of sucks in our role as, journalists and writers, because, data mines and leaks do tend to be newsworthy. So at some point you just like have to sort of, I don't know, if every single outlet's reporting it, then it's news because of that, right? But I actively try to avoid all that stuff so that everything is fresh and new to me. And it makes it so much more fun to go along for the ride, Like, I can't even imagine if I didn't know that the little girl in the trailer of, the Revenant reveal was going to be the next legend. Like, my heart would have raced when I discovered that, But of course, everybody knew because like the leaks and things like that. So it sort of gives you an understanding of like why they're so protective about their IP and try not to let things get out, right?
Apex is the leakiest game I've ever played. They cannot keep. Although the Revenant Forge thing,
that was great.
Good.
Yeah,
that was good.
I don't know if that. I think that the leaks were so confusing because of the Forge that nobody expected it. I think there were Revenant leaks, but then when everybody was like, "Oh, I guess that's not true," when we saw Forge, that was such a great misdirect and a great way to handle a situation where their characters always get leaked, always. Yeah. Cool. So next week we have our third hunt. I really don't have any predictions. I thought it was cool that the pieces of the artifact are getting put together. In the first week, you saw the one piece and you could flip it, and I kind of thought you would just be able to toggle to each one and look at it, but they're actually going together like Voltron. So
I was about to make that joke.
I actually just happened to be watching. I was trying to get a screen grab for something I wrote. I was watching the season 5 reveal, the gameplay reveal, and when it talks about the quest, it actually does show all the different pieces of whatever this is kind of coming together in some way. I still don't know what it is. I don't know what to make of it, but there's a scene where that happens. So.
I do too. Go ahead, Eric.
My theory is that it's a gate. It's like a Stargate. We're like building this big portal, and then we're gonna go through it, and it's gonna be our next map.
But Wraith can already portal, so I'm just kidding. My theory is that it's a flux capacitor, and then they're going to team up with the creators of Back to the Future, and it's going to be a big thing. And then there's going to be a Deadmau5 concert.
You know what? I think you're probably right.
I have no evidence for this, but
wouldn't that be crazy if just like out of left field they're like Apex Legends, and it's just like all like, instead of logging in to play the characters we always play, you can play like Deadmau5 and Flostradamus and like just all different whatever.
Beethoven.
Just completely go off the rails. Like Vince Zampella just like totally like decided to do away with the original concept and just make it into a giant dance party.
I could absolutely, some years down the road, see this game getting unrecognizable from what it is today.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to hear your plugs this week, Whitney.
You can catch me. I'll be streaming for the Gamer on Facebook on Friday and Sunday is what I've been doing, usually around somewhere between 2 and 4. Sorry, I'm not consistent with my schedule, everybody.
Whitney's been playing Maneater.
I've been playing some Maneater. It's a crazy shark game. It's really, really fun to chew up humans for some reason. It's all the rage that you feel for the world, but you just like take it out in a video game as like a shark that eats humans. Anyway, and then I'm on Twitch too. It's Lumbago. I couldn't get like Lumbe BAE, so it's BA3GO. And yeah, find me there. We'll hang out.
Perfect, Andrew.
Finn TTV PHIN. Catch me on Twitch. Otherwise, I'm streaming on the Gamers Facebook page Monday and Tuesday, unless I'm really busy, and then I just abandon everyone. But I'm usually there. So.
As far as new games and stuff for the Gamer and our YouTube content, May was a super slow month. I'll admit it. We were gonna do some Crucible stuff, but and then nobody cared about Crucible. So Andrew and I are going to do some gameplay videos in June. We have some ideas. There's some pretty big releases in June that you guys may have heard of. Last of Us, maybe. So yeah, look forward to that. We'll have a lot more video content coming up in June, and look forward to the podcast every week on Wednesdays. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.
Bye, everyone.